Barakatay Hawa, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Racha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Beware of Bugged Out Doctrines. And pretty much this lesson is inspired by a comment that was put up on the live lesson that I did. Let me see. I believe that was yesterday. They laying it out in the sight of all. And I believe it was a woman that made the comment. I tried to find it, but I couldn't find it. It's in the live chat. And pretty much she said, "What about archaics?" And I said, I don't know anything about that. I never heard of that term. Now I know archaic means, ancient, or something old. But as far as archaics with an X at the end, I never heard of it. And come to find out, pretty much, in a nutshell, from what because I didn't really do no deep research. I just kind of briefly looked at it. They have videos up, but the videos are 3 hours plus long. I ain't sitting there for no goddamn 3 hours watching some bugged out shit. But pretty much what it is, it's, they even have a site, which I didn't put this in the description box. I don't suggest anybody go here and watch this. It's called Arkhaics.com. And pretty much it's the supposition, or suppositions, or however you say the word, that, the asking the question is, do we live in a simulated reality? In other words, are we plugged up somewhere like the Matrix or something like that? And the life that we're living, is just simulated. We're thinking that we're actually there, but we're really not. Something along those lines. I'm pretty sure there's a whole lot more to it, but that's pretty much what I got from the little bit of research that I actually did. And I looked up the word simulated reality is a hypothesis that reality could be simulated. For example, by quantum computer simulation to a degree indistinguishable from true reality. It could contain conscious minds that may or may not know that they live inside a simulation. So pretty much it's something like the metaverse. Like you're in the metaverse and you're thinking that things are actually real that you're seeing around you, but they're really not. And that's what these people are painting, looking at this world and trying to make people think that this is an actual simulation, which if you get technical, it is. But on the level of Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, it's his movie and he's producing it. And we're actually, going through the motions of what the Lord has us going through in his movie. But as far as being plugged in to somewhere like the metaverse or the Matrix, anything like that, that's not what's going on. We're playing out everything that the Lord set up, and it's playing out the way the Lord set it up, and we're just going through what the Lord has us going through. Like it says, man's goings are of the Lord. How can a man then understand his own ways? So you have to beware of these bugged out doctrines. Remember, the flat earth doctrine came in, swept a whole bunch of people out, and they're gone. And now that flat earth thing is, pretty much a thing of the past. You still have people that try to revive it, but it's still a thing of the past. Now, that reminded me the simulation part of the movie Dark City. Now, those of you that have not seen the movie Dark City, I suggest you watch it. It's a very good movie. It came out, I think it was in the 90s. It was in the 90s, but I'm not sure exactly what year. You could look it up. And you had you had some actors that have been, in other movies that you can recognize. But one of the main characters that you can recognize is Kiefer Sutherland, which is Donald Sutherland's son, and also William Hurt, which I didn't know his name prior to this, but I know his face. This is Kiefer Sutherland right here. I've seen him before in the movie Knight's Tale. I've seen her before in other movies, but I just don't know their names. And this is John Hurt, but I didn't know his name, but I recognize his face from other movies. So that's what this reminds me of, because when you look at this movie, Dark City, it's a place where it's always night. There's no day. And what it is, it's a simulation. And once 12 o'clock night hits, everybody falls asleep except for certain individuals that break, the routine, so to speak. And what they do is, while people are sleeping, they change their lives around and put them in different positions. Sometimes they're, poor, and they put them in a rich setting. Sometimes they're rich and they put them in a poor setting, so on and so forth. And that was pretty much the so-called simulated reality of the movie, being in a dark city, controlled behind the scenes by, the illuminated ones, which they show you them. They kind of look like characters that belong in the movie Hellraiser, And, you have to watch the movie to get the rest of it. But that's pretty much what I thought about when I was reading about this Arkhaics crap. All right. Then I also this is also a website which I didn't put in the description box. I'm just going to read a little bit of this just to kind of give you a synopsis of what it is, because I had heard nothing about it. I just found out yesterday about the term. I'm not sure if it's on Netflix. You could type it in there and see. But it is a very good movie to watch. With a spiritual eye. It's not a movie of super excitement and action. I mean, it does have some action in it, but it's not one of those type movies. It's more like looking at it from the point of view of the international bankers having people in a rat race, and changing people's lives and, manipulating things in that fashion, so to speak. So it says, our world is not what you think. See, and already right there, you're looking at what they're saying at the simulated reality. In the vaults of Arkhaics, you will learn that a harrowing truth governs humanity in the collective. So pretty much they're basing this off of the Matrix. But the word Matrix means womb, and the word Arkhaics, I guess is a play on the IX at the end of it for Matrix, for womb. But Arkhaics, or archaic with a C, is ancient. All right. It says, but on a personal level, you are more than you suppose yourself to be. Discovering the truth requires one to plunge into darkness to reach the light. Here you will find you are not alone. We exist within a controlled holosphere wherein past civilizations have been deliberately buried in cataclysms that occur with such perfect mathematical precision that we boldly announce the next worldwide civilization reset happening in May 2040. This 2040 date was first published in 2006. So it's pretty much a bugged out doctrine, where instead of just dealing with telling the truth and going into truth, they're going into this whole simulated reality, and you in the simulation and so on and so forth. So it's bugged out. That's why the title of the lesson is Beware of Bugged Out Doctrines. Now I have a couple of precepts. Job 13:4 says, but you are forgers of lies. You are all physicians of no value. So we're going to deal with the part forgers of lies. A forgery is something that's doctored up. Like let's type it in here. Forgery, right? It says the action of forging or producing a copy of a document, signature, banknote, or work of art. Because what they're doing is they're taking, the scriptures, they're taking the doctrine of the scriptures and adding other things to it and creating their own doctrine. But in some cases, they're just coming up with some bugged out ideas, philosophies, and thesis or theories, that they believe to be true, and painting it to the world. And you have some bugged out individuals that think along those lines and they fall for the madness. So the word for forgers is the word tapal. The word tapal is to smear, plaster over, stick, glue. So it's pretty much to, like it says, smear over a plaster, so it's like a plaster or untempered mortar that's put over the truth, and most people can't see what's behind the plaster. They just see what's in front of the plaster and they fall for it, and that's why you have all of these bugged out things. So forges, and then you have the word lies, which is the word shakor, tapal shakor, which is lie, deception, disappointment, falsehood. Deception, what deceives or disappoints or betrays one, right? Because it's all pretty much a betrayal, and you actually have Israelites that fall for this stuff. Now, the woman that came on the comment board on the live yesterday, I'm not sure if she's a Jake or whatever the case may be, or maybe a bugged out Edomite that gets into this. I don't know who she is, but she came in there and she put that question, what about Arkhaics? And like I told her, I said, I never heard of it. So I did a little research, and it's just straight up bug outism. All right. Booger bug outism. Yep. Like the elder said, just Esau searching for a way out of judgment. Yep. Because they're looking for something to fit in, because they know that they don't fit into the scriptures. So they got to find something else that they can make themselves feel good about themselves, I guess, for lack of better words. Something that they can be the masters at. That's why they like all of those theosophical or actually theological terminologies that they come up with, so that they can find a realm where they can battle and be the winners of it, whatever the case may be. Isaiah 8:20, to the law and to the testimony, they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. And that's the truth. And that's why it's saying here in one of these things that their purpose is to plunge into darkness to reach the light. What the fuck were you talking about? We were already plunged into darkness. The light is Yahweh Bashem Yahushai that brought us out of the darkness. Why the hell we want to plunge ourselves into the darkness, to find the light, when the light found us? Yahushua said, you have not chosen me, but I have chosen you. So going back, so let's read this again. It says, but you are forgers of lies. And this is the main point, because that's what these devils are. They forge lies. They doctor up lies. And that's all they've done. And that's how they make themselves to be important in this world. So the next one is 1 Timothy 6:20. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust. And this is what's important, because we have been entrusted with this truth. And it is our job, to the best of our ability, to protect that. This is why we're known as defenders of the gospel, the true apologia, or the true apologetics. And in that, you have to battle. Not only do you have to battle those that use the Bible against you, but you also have to battle against other bullshit that comes up, just for the sake of saying, look, this is a false doctrine, pretty much. So when we go to 2 Corinthians 4:3, it says, but if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost. And this is why every Israelite is not going to get this truth. So these individuals that are trying to reach for all Israel, they are clueless when it comes down to what the truth is all about. The truth is the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, throwing a line out there that can only be found by the elect, who were sealed with that special ointment in their eyes to be able to see through all of the darkness that exists out there, whom the powers of this world, the Edomites, have blinded the majority of the world. This is why the world was in darkness for a long period of time, which in some cases they still are. It says, in whom the God of this world, which is who? Esau, under the supervision of Satan and their ghouls and goblins, under the orders of the Most High, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not. See? Because they can't receive it. Lest the light. See, it keeps on speaking about the light. It speaks about darkness. It speaks about light. If we were in the darkness and we're coming out of the darkness into the light, why would you want to plunge yourself further into darkness to get to the light when the light found us? It says, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Yahushua, who is the image of the Most High, should shine unto them. Why? Because once that shining comes, the darkness is past. The darkness is overcome. It says, for we preach not ourselves, but Yahushua the Lord, and ourselves your servants for Yahushua's sake. It says, for the Most High who commanded the light to shine out of darkness. See? First there was darkness, then there was light. So why would you want to plunge yourself back into darkness to get to the light? For the Most High who commanded the light to shine out of darkness hath shined in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of the Most High in the face of Yahushua. Correct. But we have this treasure, this light, this truth in what? In earthen vessels, because we were entrusted with this knowledge. And we were entrusted not only with it, but to teach it, to dish it out, so to speak, for lack of better words, to protect it, to defend it, to teach it, so on and so forth. That the excellency of the power may be of the Most High and not of us, because it has nothing to do with us. We just happen to be the vessels that the Lord gave this knowledge to teach it. Because at the end of the day, the Lord don't need any of us. You know, long before we came along, the Lord was already doing his thing. All right. It says, we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. That goes into something else. But this is all why? Because of the precious cargo that we're carrying, which is this truth, the money of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. What happens when you're, traveling, especially like back in the days when you would travel by horse and buggy, and you were traveling through the forest, through the woods, and you were carrying the king's treasure? You had to be alert, because you always had those that try to ambush you to try to steal the riches of the king for themselves. And this is where we're at. We're in the forest right now, in the wilderness, protecting the money, the gold, the treasures of the king, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And Esau, the other nations, and Jake, that's down with them, are trying to steal the Lord's riches. See? All right, so let's go from there back to 1 Timothy 6:20. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust. We've been entrusted with this in these earthen vessels. Avoiding profane and vain babblings. What is profane? Profane, it says to avoid it. Profane means outside of the temple. Pro, outside. Phantom, temple. Profane, bebelos, it says accessible, lawful to be trodden. Right. Because we have a path of the righteous righteousness that is to be trodden or walked on, and then you have a path of wickedness that is not to be walked on. That's why the prophets, teachers, ministers of the Lord were set up to let us know when we were walking down the wrong path. You're going down the wrong way, dummy. Turn around. That's why the scripture says you heard a voice behind thee. And sometimes when we go off the track, it is the job of the shepherds to bring the sheep back on track. Like there was a situation yesterday at camp where a brother was put on the spot because of a video that he did, and it was corrected, right? And it's not for the destruction of a brother. It's for their correction, admonishment, and for them to get it right. Now, in that case, the brother, once he got the true understanding, now he knows better. Like, I'll give you an example. Back in the days in the school, there was a class that was taught, and there was a question that was asked to myself, that made me look bad. And the question was, what does the name Raguel or Reul mean? And pretty much I was embarrassed. And the thing about it was that the name Raguel is not really a name that we really go into all the time, like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So it really wasn't that important. But the thing about it was I was embarrassed, by the teacher, so bad that to this very day I remember the name and what it means. All the way from back then, going back close to 30 years. And I still remember the meaning of that name because of the embarrassment that I suffered for that. So this truth, when you put on the spot, yeah, it's embarrassing, but you know what? It's made for us to be better. Like the scriptures say, godly sorrow worketh repentance unto salvation. All right. So there is a right path to walk down and a wrong path to walk down. When you walk down the wrong path, it is the job of the shepherd to knock you back on the road, so to speak, verbally. All right. It says of places profane, unhallowed, common, public place, of men ungodly. Okay. So it says avoiding profane and vain babblings. Now, when we look up the word vain babblings, this is where it starts to get even more juicier. It says kinophonia, which is two words, kinos and phone. Empty discussion. So what is your archaics? This nonsense, this madness that they bringing out. What about archaics? What about it? It ain't nothing more than empty talk, vain talk. As we just read here for the word vain babbling, I believe it was, empty discussion. Discussion of vain and useless matters. That's what this is. Well, what if we were in a simulation, and we thought that our reality was really real, but it really was controlled by those, that were controlling the computer, the computer graphics, and the whole scenario where, you were in a box and you were thinking that you were really living a real life, but it was all contrived and controlled by quantum physics. The fuck out of here with that bullshit, man. All it is just empty talk. Salaka for the crazy, the crazy voice and all that. But it's all it is empty discussion of vain and useless matters. The flat earth thing, vain and useless matter. Many other things are vain and useless matters. Vain or empty discussions. So going back, let's read that again. It says avoiding profane and vain babblings. That's what that is. Nothing but vain babblings. All right. Right. You know what? I'm going to read this precept that the brother put up. 2 Timothy 2:15, study to show thyself approved unto the Most High. And this is why studying is important. It says a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth, but shun profane and vain babblings. And that's exactly what that is, vain babblings. And I'm pretty sure if you look up the word vain babblings there, it's going to be the same word, that we just read. For they will increase unto more ungodliness, right? Because that is the job of these demons, to pull away the Israelites from the truth. And their word will eat as doth a canker, which is what? A cancer, of whom is Hymenaeus and Philetus, right? Because they were teaching things contrary to the doctrine. They were resisting things that the Apostle Paul taught them. And they were causing other Israelites to fall away from the truth, because their word was a cancerous worm that was being spread in the minds of the people, and those that had the itching ears, they fell right for it. The brother Yashalom said another one is the Mandela effect. I've looked it up, but right now, off top, I can't really. I know I've looked that up before. It's going into the whole thing, but there's so many effects and and things out there that it's impossible to remember everything. But I did look that up before. Let me read this one, 2 Timothy 2:23. But foolish and unlearned questions avoid, knowing that they do gender strikes. Right, and that's why yesterday when that chick That bugged out chick asked that, what about archaics? I said, I don't know. I never heard of it. I'm not going to speak on something I don't know about, because I'm going to end up assuming. And you know what they say about assuming? You make an ass out of you and out of me. It says, and oppositions. Now, this is another key word. Oppositions of science, falsely so-called. Now, the word oppositions is the word antithesis, which is something that goes against, you know. So antithesis is a compound word, anti, against, you know. It says, and thesis, to lay, put, lay down. And these are what? Things that have been appointed by other men. Right. This is another good one the brother put up. Ecclesiastes 3:23, be not curious in unnecessary matters, for more things are showed unto thee than men understand. And this is why individuals try to get deeper and deep, and they up sinking and drowning. You know? And the 21st verse, seek not out things that are too hard for thee, neither search the things that are above thy strength. Right. Because there's a lot more that is taught to us, you know, that is on a way deeper, heavy level than the world knows. But you know, Jake always wants to go deeper than deep. So it says antithesis is a opposition, that which is opposed, because the thesis or the theory, you know, or the thesis is that this is the Most High's word. This is what he established. Anything other than that is an antithesis, an opposition, an antichrist, you know, the antitype. You know, and anything that goes against sound doctrine is anti-Messiah, thesis, anti-whatever. All right. So let's go back. So it says science falsely so-called. So when we look up the word science, because we looked up opposition, antithesis, the word science goes back to the Greek word gnosis, where you get the word Gnostic, or to know or knowledge. All right, gnosis, ginosko, to know, see, perceive, understand. It says knowledge signifies in general intelligence, understanding. Right, and these things that these people do, you have certain understandings to them. They have certain knowledge to them, but they're not lawful. You know, they're not, important. They're not expedient. And when you look up the word expedient, X is out, ped is foot. Expedient, to step out. In other words, what lessons can we do that's going to make this truth move forward? Expedient. Those are the important things, the things that make the truth move forward. Expedite that, which means what? To move faster. One foot in front of the other. A general knowledge of Christian religion. The deeper, more perfect, and enlarged knowledge of this religion, such as belongs to those that are more advanced, right? Because you have something in the scriptures called meat, which is for the more advanced students. You have, or teachers. You have milk, which is for the lesser advanced students, and you have meat, which is for the more advanced teachers, especially of things lawful and unlawful for Christians, right? Which part of that is what? Eating certain unlawful foods that you can't eat, but they don't teach that. They teach you could eat anything, if you cook it right, Moral wisdom such as is seen in right living, right? But this particular science is what? Falsely so-called, which goes into the word pseudo. Falsely so-called is pseudonymous, which is a compound word. Pseudo is false, and onoma is name. So these doctrines are false in name. They have a like the scriptures say, they have a how is that in Colossians 2? I can't think of the wording, so let me just get it real quick. Let's see. Colossians 2:23, which things have indeed a show of wisdom in matter of fact, let me start up at 20. Wherefore, if you be dead with Yahushua from the rudiments of the world, right, the things of the world, They're trying to keep the law 100% perfect. Not saying you don't keep the law. We keep the law to the best of our ability, but that's not where we make our boast at. Why, as though living in the world, are you subject to ordinances? Right. What ordinances? The ordinances of the world, and trying to keep the laws 100%. When the scriptures say, if you transgress in one, you're guilty of breaking them all. Because what you're doing is you're trying to get to the Father through keeping of the law and casting away the grace that he sent down in his son Yahushua. Says, touch not, taste not, handle not. Right. Don't even think about it. Which all are to perish with the using. Right. Because the things that you use perish, and the person themselves will perish after the commandments and doctrines of men. Because what you have to understand is, when you go back 2,000 years ago, even today, but 2,000 years ago, these things that were being taught by the Pharisees and Sadducees and them, they pretty much exalted the what's the word I'm looking for? The traditions of the elders above the word of the Most High. You see? So that was all to perish, because it was all vain, because it had nothing to do. I mean, only thing that it had to do with the Lord's word was that they just used it as a thing of power. But just like Esau does, they cast the word of the Lord behind them to bring out their own, things. That's why Yahweh said, their fear towards me is taught by the precept of men. Meaning the fear towards the Most High is taught by the precept of men, because they were exalting the traditions of the elders, and had that more in higher regard than the words of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. That's why it says, after the commandments and doctrines of men, which things have indeed a show of wisdom and will worship. Yeah, because all things have knowledge. There's another scripture, if you brothers know where that's at, all things have knowledge or something like that. It's in Corinthians, either 1st or 2nd Corinthians. I hope you brothers know what I mean. I can't think of the wording, but it's something along that line, that all things have knowledge or wisdom or something like that. It says, and humility and neglecting of the body, right? Because all of these things that you do, even in men worship, there's certain things that you do. You have to humble yourself in certain things. You have to, go on certain fasts, neglecting of the body. But it says, not in any honor to the satisfying of the flesh, right? Because it doesn't satisfy, because the ultimate thing is what? Get to the end to receive the reward of salvation, so that these bodies can be changed. So that we can receive that new body, the new heart, new mind, new spirit. I'm sorry, not new spirit, because we're going to have the spirit, but a new mind, a new body with the law, statutes, and commandments put in it, to be able to live forever. I'm going to read this. I don't know if any of you brothers know what scripture I'm talking about, but Ecclesiastes 19:19, the knowledge of the commandments of the Lord is the doctrine of life. Beautiful. And they that do things that please him shall receive the fruit of the tree of immortality. Right. And that's what we're looking forward to. Which all of these other things, you will neglect the body. You will go into, different fasts and different things that you do, different sacrifices. But it did nothing, pretty much. It says, the fear of the Lord is all wisdom, and in all wisdom is the performance of the law and the knowledge of his omnipotency, right? Because that's another thing. They would minimize the power of the Lord. The knowledge of wickedness is not wisdom, neither at any time the counsel of sinners prudence. Okay. Let's see. I guess brothers don't know what I'm talking about. So let me see if I can find it. I don't want to get rid of that yet. All right. So let's see. Just bear with me 1 second. How is this 5, 6? Ezekiel, Luke. Let's see. Let me see if this is it. Right, here it is. 1 Corinthians 6 and 12. All things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient. See? All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. 1 Corinthians 10:23. All things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. That's pretty much the same thing. All things are lawful for me, but all things edify not. See? All things edify not. All right, so that's pretty much it. So let's go back to this pseudonymous. This is dealing with science. This is falsely so-called. Falsely named, see, because it's a compound word of pseudos, which is false or liar, and onoma, which is name. All right, so false name. So all of these things that you see that these people put out there, they put this spectacular heading on it to make it seem like it's knowledgeable, but it's nothing more than pseudoscience. It's nothing more than an opposition to the Most High's word. And the king of opposition to the Lord is who? Esau. That's Satan. You know, the adversary. And anyone that follows behind him are the adversaries also, the anti-messiahs. All right? So, O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science falsely so called. Now, Ephesians 4:14, that we henceforth be no more children, because children are what? Very impressionable. When we look up the word children, nepios or nerios, nepios, an infant, little child, a minor, not of age, metaphorically childish, untaught, unskilled. So don't be as a child, because you know a child is not fully trained up. Their mind is not fully developed yet. You know, and this is why it says train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old he will not depart from it. A woman, when she is a young woman, she's supposed to have a mind well instructed on the path that she's supposed to take. Otherwise, you're gonna have this corral of beasts that you see out here parading out here that have vaginas between their legs, titties and all that, but they're nothing more than beasts at best, laying down with every and anything, man and woman. Like you see animals, what they do, they lay down with anything. I mean, not as far as same sex or not like that, but they they don't have, one female can have sex with this particular lion, and then she might go to this other, there's no, dogs do that, this dog popping that dog, and there's no, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no boundaries to them. See, but so the Lord is saying, don't be a child, have boundaries, be taught. So it says that we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro. When we look up the word tossed to and fro, that's like a wave. It's kludonizomai. It says to be tossed by waves, metaphorically to be agitated like the waves mentally. And that's what? Putting yourself in a predicament where you're starting to be swayed by these different philosophies. Remember, it says that the time will come where they will not endure sound doctrine. Now, when we go to the book of Jude, right, I believe it's a 12th verse. Yep. we're just going to go straight to the point. It says, these are spots in your feast of charity. This is dealing with individuals that come into this knowledge when they feast with you, feeding themselves without fear. Because you've had these individuals come to different high holy days, the Passover, certain things of that nature, feeding themselves without fear. The point here is clouds they are without water. Carried about of winds. What winds? The winds of these doctrines that come and that go. Your archaics and your flat earths and, all of these different terminologies that the, Renaissance Christianity pushes out there. Some go from Christianity to Islam to the black conscience community, so on and so forth. They just keep bouncing around like children, like a leaf. Or like that. You're just a straw in the wind. From that movie Peter and Paul. Trees whose fruit withereth without fruit. Why? Because they're not grounded. Twice dead. Not just once dead, twice dead. Plucked up by the roots. Because they're not plugged in to the sole root, which is Yahushai. That's why when the winds came and beat upon that house, it fell because it was not founded upon a rock. And that rock is Yahushai. Raging waves of the sea. When you see waves and you're watching, like especially like if a storm is coming or just waves coming in and you see them crashing up against stones, it's nothing but a bunch of confusion. There's no, it's not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not controlled, right? It says foaming out their own shame. And then you see foam coming out of those, out of that wave upon the rocks. That's how these guys are. They're just foaming out shame. Just saying whatever the hell comes to their mind. You've seen them plenty of times. You've seen your Bataks and you've seen your different individuals out there. Your damn, I forgot the guy's name out of Chicago. Not Nazariah. And recently you have a war. Him and them other guys that are with him, foaming out their shame. It says wandering stars, right? Because a wandering star is someone that's moving from place to place. They're not stable. They're not anchored in place. Let's look up the word wandering. Planetes goes back to planos, which is deceiving. A wanderer, wandering star, right? Somebody that wanders from one place to another. A rover. An erratic teacher. Something erratic is something that doesn't make sense. It's just constantly on the move. Not even or regular in pattern or movement. Unpredictable, right? From one moment to the next, they teach in one thing, and next thing they'll teach something else, and the next week they'll teach something else. Children tossed to and fro, and carried of every wind of doctrine. All right? I believe that was it on that. Okay, no. It says, wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. See? Because when we go to, is that Matthew 6? And 22. The light of the body is the eye, which is what? The mind, the spirit. Remember, we were brought out of darkness into this marvelous light. If therefore thine eye be single, meaning what? You're concentrating on one thing. What did Yahushua say that one thing we should concentrate on is? Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things shall be added unto you. If your eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Right. Which is this knowledge. Which is the oxygen of this truth. But if thine eye be evil, meaning your mind is all over the place, you're unsure. Well, just in case this doesn't go down, I got a backup plan. I got plan B, C through Z. Thy whole body shall be full of darkness. Why? Because eventually that light that's in you is going to become darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? Meaning gross darkness. So imagine you were out there in the world, you were in darkness, The Lord brought you into the light. When you go back out there, you're going to be sevenfold, eightfold in darkness than you were before you came into this thing. So that's what's reserved for these individuals. Because there remains no more sacrifice for sins once you turn your back on Yahweh Shai. All right, so let's see what else we got. So this is to be agitated, which is kludo nitzomai, which was the word tossed to and fro. So be no more children tossed to and fro and carried about with. The word carried about is peripheral, to carry round, to bear about everywhere with one. Right here. In doubt and hesitation, to be led away now to this opinion, now to that, right? In other words, unstable. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Let's get that. This is James. James chapter 1. Let's see. Right here. A double-minded man is what? Unstable in all his ways. The word unstable. Akatastatos. Akatastatos. Unstable, inconsistent, restless. Why? Because he doesn't have that anchor. That anchor of the soul. Inconsistent, meaning he's not constant. You know, like you see these guys, at first they strong, they go out for a while, then after about 3 weeks, or 3 months, 6 months, a year maybe, then they start fizzling down. Why? Because they no longer are connected to that root, which is Yahweh Shai. Remember, Yahweh Shai said, if you're not connected to him, you're going to wither and fall away. Unstable, inconstant, restless. Okay. So, going back, that was peripheral, which was carried about with every wind and doctrine. See, wind and doctrine. Matter of fact, the word wind is a little different from spirit. Anemos, where you get the word animated from, which the word animate, means soul or live. Aner, which is air. It says wind of violent agitation and stream of air. Right. One thing is coming, you hear it, and boom, you're off surfing. Surfing on that wave. And then another wave comes and goes the other way, and you're surfing back on that wave. A very strong tempestuous wind, the 4 principal cardinal winds, okay? So we pretty much get the idea. So wind, every wind and doctrine. See, so everything that comes, you're flowing with it because you're not anchored in place. By the what? Sleight of men. Sleight is kubeya, which goes back to the word cube, which is dice playing. Because remember, in dice playing, there was always cheating going on in certain cases. Just like when you have that, what do you think is called, 3-card Monte or something like that, where the guy, has the card and you got to pick the one, the red or the heart or whatever the case may be, and he's going through the motions and another guy comes up, which is down with him, and he wins, and then you play because you're thinking that you got it, and then you lose. And he said, then he'll get you again, and you lose again. Before you know it, you done lost what you had in your pocket. Kubos, a cube, an example, die for playing. Dice playing, metaphorically, the deception of men, because dice players sometimes cheated and defrauded their fellow players. And that's what these guys are set up. That's why Yahweh said, anyone that came before me was a what? A thief. The hirelings. They don't care for the sheep. Every doctrine by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness. So the word cunning craftiness is panurgea, craftiness, cunning, a specious or false wisdom. See, it's not true wisdom. They talk a good game, but if you're a part of the elect, you'll be able to get around it, because it said if it were at all possible, they would deceive the very elect. That says, in a good sense, prudence, skill in undertaking and carrying on affairs. So the one we're looking for is a specious or false wisdom, craftiness, cunning. Because these are cunningly devised fables. You know, things that have been someone sat down and actually concocted this shit in their mind, thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, and then went and got a whole bunch of scriptures to put together, which they just threw together, which they butchered, sliced, twisted, and turned to make up this new philosophy. All right? Whereby they lie in wait to deceive, which is planeo. If you go to the word planao, which means deception. All right? Now let's finish off here, Colossians 2:8. Beware lest any man spoil you through what? Philosophy and vain deceit. This whole archaic bullshit is nothing more than a philosophy. Do we live in a simulated reality? Fuck out of here, man. But this is what Esau does. This is how they get off. They get off on that esoteric, theosophical, left-hand energy wisdom. Because they're not connected to the Most High on the right-hand side. It says, after the what? Tradition of men. These are all traditions of men. After the rudiments of the world, and not after Yahushua. And in this case, this word world is the word cosmos, which goes back to the Israelites. Because they had a whole setup. Because this is what the Apostle Paul was warning them about. Today we apply it today to Esau because Esau is in that position of deception, which he wasn't it back then, but he's the main one today. And you have Israelites that are within the grip of that deception. That's why it says, if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world has blinded the mind of them which believe not. And that's pretty much it, And so as the name of the title is, beware of bugged out doctrines. I just kind of went into it because the Spirit, had me run into some info, and it kind of gave me an idea for a lesson to go into. And it's good because it allowed us to go through all of these precepts, dealing with these false philosophies, cunning craftiness, the deception of men, so on and so forth. As the brother Yashalam said, Esau will do and say anything to make you doubt the Bible. And that's the ultimate goal, to try to pull away as many Israelites away from the scriptures as possible, because they're trying to get back that birthright. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say, Shalom.